Why don't we go ahead and get started? It's really a great pleasure of mine to welcome Dr. Arnaldo Colombo from Federal University in Sao Paulo, who's the Vice Dean of Research there and head of the Infectious Disease group. And he's here because of an initiative at the University in Sao Paulo to create a Translational Research Institute in Sao Paulo, of which most of our focus today will be on Renato Lopes discussing the BCRI. And you'll notice some similarities here to some of the work going on at Duke, with the BTMI as well being part of this initiative. But for Renato, it's really been a terrific experience working with Renato since 2006, when he showed up on our doorstep, really with a fair amount of uncertainty, I would have to say, about how things would turn out. Because Renato was a bit shy and his English wasn't that great, and he came with this wonderful woman who was kind of working on translating for him and helping him get settled in. And I have to say, he's been a bit like a seed placed in fertile ground with good watering and sunlight. He's really blossomed into a remarkably accomplished investigator, and still clearly in the upslope of his career. But since 2006, Renato has been Chief Fellow here with us last year. He's gotten his master's degree. He's got already a remarkable accomplishment in terms of publications, publishing in New England Journal, maybe one of the first Brazilians to have a first author publication in New England Journal, receiving the best abstract presentation at the European Society of Cardiology. And now, really, I think, doing the most remarkable thing, which is, in some ways, what we really hope for what we're doing at the DCRI, and that is having somebody taking what he's seen here and experienced here and extending it to an important part of the world, to South America, an area where we know that there's a tremendous growth in economic development, also lots of needs for medical research, and not as much going on as certainly is needed. So we're really extremely excited to have Renato creating this research enterprise in Brazil, and also for an example for South America. To take much of what's being done at the DCRI and extending that, and already a lot of good work is going on, and we're really looking forward to hearing your update about it today, Renato.
So thanks, Chris, for the kind words. For me, it's really an honor and a pleasure to be here today, because I have been working very hard, like in the last 3-4 years here, and knowing a lot of people, and now to have the opportunity to share a little bit my background in terms of where I came from, my university in Brazil and São Paulo, my people there, the things that we're trying to create. And also I'd like to thank Dr. Colombo, is the Vice Dean, as was mentioned, has been tremendously helpful in our initiatives, through all the support and visionary that is helping us to innovate in the country and in the region, actually, in South America, with the idea of creating this ARO called BCRI, which is not common in that region of the world. So it's really a new concept that we are trying to extend from here to South America. So I'm going to start a little bit just giving some numbers in terms of the population of Brazil. Now is reaching almost the 200 million people. And Penny actually was telling me like a few minutes ago that I think that the US reached that population 4 years ago. 42 years ago, that's right. In 42 years ago, US reached the 200 million people. And so now we are almost getting the 200 million people. And my city, actually, which is not the capital of Brazil, but is definitely the economic and scientific capital of Brazil, it's São Paulo, which the state of São Paulo is about 40 million people. So the city of São Paulo by itself is the third biggest city in the world. So with a population around 20, 25 million people. So that's important to understand why some initiative of the one that we are creating need to come from a place like that. Need to come from a place like São Paulo who really drives the scientific and research in the country. And then just in terms of a little bit of what São Paulo has, so this is one of our famous parks. It's called Ibirapuera Park. So it's in a nice neighborhood in São Paulo, very close to our university. So people go there to jog, to walk, and spend some time. This is the famous Paulista Avenue, where all the banks and some important museums are in São Paulo. Here's it's a art museum, and here is the Opera House. So São Paulo is very famous for several things, especially the museums and excellent nightlife, and also the gastronomy is very strong there. So actually it was very difficult for me when I first came here that I was used to go out for dinner at 10:30, 11, and then here at 8:30 everything was already closed. So it was a big difference for me to try to get used to these differences in cities. Here's the Opera House, and some of the faculty here that have been visitors in São Paulo had already been there. And here's a very nice place where we have opera, we have musicals, we have plays. So it's really a city that merges different kind of backgrounds. We have a very important Asian population, European background. So it's a place that get together with a lot of different backgrounds population. And in terms of our university, the Federal University of São Paulo, so it was founded in 1933 as a medical school. So by that time it was not a university, it was just a medical school. And then it evolves until 2009 where we have now 29 undergrad courses in all fields of knowledge within 6 campuses. So that's the current status of the university. And if you notice, it started basically as a house. That was the medical School of Medicine started. So some physicians from the other university didn't have a chance to develop their career there because of politics that already exists by that time. So that they say, okay, we needed to create something else. We need to be professors. So they were very bright physicians, and they moved and started this Paulista School of Medicine. And today that's what we have. So it's our hospital, São Paulo Hospital, is the Federal University of São Paulo. That's the campus. The mission of the hospital is to develop with high standards of excellence interrelated activities of teaching, research, and extension, aiming for national and international leadership in health science. Some numbers about the hospital. So the Federal University of São Paulo and our hospital is the largest residency and fellowship program in the entire country. And the Federal University, the São Paulo Hospital is the largest university hospital in the country. That's the main hospital. It's the equivalent of was the main Duke Hospital. We also have, just like Duke has, other satellite hospitals in the city, which we also take care and send our staff there. So we have 5 or 6 actually satellite hospitals that work within our branch. Let's see like that, let's put like that. But the main hospital, where the main university is, we have about 740 beds. And last year we were very happy because in the evaluation of the Minister of Education, we were ranked by different criteria they rank and they score by different publications, teaching activities, PhD, and I mean, it's an endless number of criteria, and we released the best university or the highest score in São Paulo. We have several areas. It's a tertiary hospital, so we have all different areas. And I'm going to go over a little bit very quickly about the main areas that we have there so that people can have a sense of why the BCRI or an institute was really important in this scenario. So our internal medicine department, so we have our grand rounds. Here is the ward, nursing station, the rooms for the patients. We have a dentist within the ward, which is very helpful because the patient doesn't need to go out and in to be treated. We have the intensive care within the department. And then clinics. Research, our site-based research is developing very much. Is improving over time. So we're going to show some numbers in the end as well. So here is the site-based research where the patients can come and we can draw. There are nurses there. Blood can be drawn, can be already storage. In terms of cardiology, here are some numbers. So, for example, in 2008, we have over 8,000 procedures, hemodynamic procedures, almost 10,000 visits in the hypertension clinic, almost 10,000 visits in the arrhythmia clinics. So it's a reasonable size in terms of volume. And in terms of the cardiac surgery, we do pre and post. I'm seeing Dr. Jones here that is very familiar with the head of our, Dr. Enio Buffalo, which is the head of our cardiac surgery department. So we do valve, we do congenital, we do coronary, and we also do heart transplant in our department. So other than this, in cardiology, we have several institutes already into place in the campus. So the GRAAC is actually the Cancer Children Institute. So it's an institute just devoted for cancer in children. And it's one of the largest actually in South America. We have about 20,000 new appointments per year. There are more than 100 clinical studies ongoing there. As you may imagine, this is an area that is growing tremendously. A lot of chemotherapy, surgery. So it's a whole building just in the campus for children's cancer care. This one is our Kidney Institute. We are very proud of that because it's the largest transplant program in the world, actually. So just in 2008, we had 707 transplants per year. So it's unbelievable. It's a 12-floor building just for kidney, and they have their own cath lab, their own CT, their home appointment. So it's almost like another hospital within the campus just for kidney diseases. So 40,000 dialysis, 90,000 medical appointments per year. So really, really remarkable. And then this is our Sleep Institute, which we are also proud of that. It's one of the largest institutes in Latin America. So was put together by also an initiative of private initiative, bringing money from private donations and also from government, and studying different stages and different aspects of research and doing research in the field of sleep. This is our Pharmacology Institute. And this is the main building of the university, the main entry of the main building of the university. In terms of the ophthalmology, this building is being built now. It's not ready, it's still not ready, but it's the projection that it's going to be ready in 1 year from now. And it's being predicted to be one of the largest institutes of South America, and there is a lot of research going on ophthalmology in the university. We also have a gene therapy institute called Citergene, with molecular-based gene therapy, stem cell therapies research. We also have the Imaging Institute. So here is the building. As you guys are trying to imagine, in the whole campus we have all these buildings close to each other, which are the separate institutes. And this is the building of imaging. So with CT, MRI, and all types of imaging diagnostic tests. We recently created this Diabetics Institute that some of you guys are familiar. Like I think Ty is working with Chakra and these guys that hold or control this institute. It's brand new, about 200 patients per month, but with a huge potential to increase. And at the moment, we have 7 clinical trials ongoing in diabetics in this institute. This is our library. It's called BREMI. And it's a very, we are very proud to have this library in our campus because it is an initiative from the Federal University of São Paulo, Ministry of Health, and Ministry of Education. So it's actually the largest library in South America, and is a reference for anybody who wanna look for specific articles or specific book or specific in the field of health, of science of health. Our RRB, our ethical committee in the university, that's just some numbers to illustrate how much of research is ongoing there. Just in 2008, the RRB had review over 2,000 protocols per year. This number is even increased now. So people put a lot of effort in making sure that we have an efficient RRB, or at least try to have an efficient RRB, and with 50 or 60 people working on that. And when you compare to other places where we have really like 5 or 3 people working RRBs, that makes a lot of difference. Not that it's ideal, it's not ideal, but we are trying to improve over time. So based on that, and because we have all these different institutes and they are doing research, you know, by themselves, and some of them with a lot of resources, but not really professionally in terms of the way that they conduct the research. So because it's not the culture of the country. So there was a need to have an institute that could coordinate or try to coordinate all these other institutes in terms of research and optimizing the time and the way that we put patients and the quality. And in other words, start a really clinical research institute that could interact with other institutes, with other areas, and facilitating research in other areas. And that's why we put together the idea of the Brazilian Clinical Research Institute that we call Brazilian Clinical Research Institute. And the similarity with the DCRI is not a coincidence, of course. We've been talking a lot with Dr. Harrington, Chris, Caleb, and many others here being really like an involving part of this that we are presenting now. So this that I'm presenting now didn't start today or yesterday. And we are working on that for a while. So because we needed to create the institute, there is a need, and money is a problem in the country. Our government doesn't have a lot of money to support. So we were able to get some private donations, some important business guys in the country, bankers and people who have a lot of money and believed in the idea and the credibility that we were doing a nice thing, trying to develop a new model that is the DCRI model, the model that I'm part of and that I learned from, to bring to Brazil. So several of these guys that we know, they really gave us a lot of money to be able to start this initiative. And other guys also help put together the money to start the institute and all the infrastructure. Once the university thought and understood that was important, but they didn't have the money, especially because in Brazil, one can never forget that it's very difficult to ask for money when we still have patients dying on hospitals of pneumonia because we don't have antibiotics. So it's very, very difficult to ask for $5 million to start an institute to do clinical research when you don't have sometimes fluid in the hospital, or Lasix, or antibiotics. So it's a paradox. So then that's the building that we put together. So it's a whole block building. So far we have three floors with an amphitheater, kind of like this for teleconference and for video conference actually. Study drug, data center room, and then we have a second room for fellows, for people that work there, with a kitchen area, with a meeting room, and then we have another room with a conference room and all the directors' room. So this is the artistic perspective of the building. So this is the whole block in the campus. So the mission of the BCRI is to develop and share knowledge that improves the care, health, and quality of life of patients in Brazil and Latin America through innovative clinical research while contributing meaningfully to the improvement of patient care around the world. And again, this mission was done by us there, but of course with the input of several of you guys here from DCRI, since we are trying to really do like a mixed model from DCRI applied in Brazil. And our vision is to enhance world health by creating and implementing and evaluating novel strategies developed through global collaboration. We have particularly interest in examining mechanisms, insight into how new diagnostics and therapeutic strategies exert their effects, examining processes of care and effects of patients' outcomes, evaluating regional differences and practice patterns and their effects on outcomes both within and outside Brazil, advocating the development of new approaches to clinical research design and analysis of collaboration with sponsors and regulatory agencies, and emphasizing the involvement of site investigators and coordinators in clinical research design and analysis and the dissemination of the results, which is really not done in the country, or in a very premature, in a very amateur way. We have an advisory board that are the key people that have been tremendously helpful and very supportive and helping me so much in every time that I would ask or send an email or talk with this idea. And 50% of my advisory board in the moment is from DCRI, which I'm proud of that, and it's exactly what I want. So Chris Granger, David Garcia from New Mexico University, Elaine Heileck from Boston, Eric from here, Franz from Belgium, Harvey White, John Alexander, Karen Pieper, Lars Valentin, Paul Armstrong, Bob Harrington, Rob Caleb, Sharon Carnash, and Stephen James. And of course, this is definitely this list has to be updated now. We have so many other people that I would like to involve. And I've been talking to maybe also creating maybe an operational board and an advisory board, faculty and operational. I think that's the way that we're gonna go. The services that we are already providing or developing are project management, site management and site monitoring, clinical event classification, clinical helpline, and communications planning. We have a little communication group that I believe is really, really important. And in terms of educational program, we have a master's and a PhD program into place, and we are starting a clinical research fellowship program within the institution. And actually, there is a chance, and Dr. Colombo and I are going to have a meeting with Eugene O'Donnell this afternoon. There is a chance that from August on, we're going to bring actually the CRTP live to Brazil. in São Paulo in our university. So the same way that they have the life with the NIH people, so maybe I was talking to Gino Doni, I already talked to him several times, has as the first country and the first place to go outside of the US, taking the master's program to São Paulo, to our university, and to Brazil. So here's just to illustrate the BCRI flow chart, and also any similarity with this DCRI one is just a coincidence. We have actually a president director, and then we have three directors, executive, scientific, and financial director. We have one CEO, and then all the other operational areas falls into these categories. And of course, this is very similar to the DCRI infrastructure, of course, in a much smaller proportion. So this picture is a little bit old. By that time, we have about 16 people working with us. So now we are about 28 employees and dedicated to research, full-time working for research, which for the country is a real mark, is a landmark. Because the way that research was done before, or actually is done in several places, is that when people don't have anything else to do, then let's do a little bit of research. And that's not the research that I learned here. And that's not the research that I think should be done, because it's more harmful, actually, to do research like that than don't do it, that don't do at all. So, or we have to do a good quality research, or it's better not to do. So these people are really working full-time for research. So these are our 4 directors. So all of them are cardiologists, but we have other areas also of faculty involved. The head of internal medicine, the head of cardiology here. And our CEO is actually Conceição. She is an ID doctor. She's an ID doctor. And she's the president of the Brazilian Society of Clinical Research. And she's a very interesting person because now she's in charge on the Brazilian government to rewrite the law about clinical research. So she has a seat in kind of what we call Brazilian FDA. And this is tremendously important when you want to try to get better regulatory process, regulatory approval, which Brazil is known to be terrible, to be like to take forever, to sometimes lose trials and lose projects because we cannot approve trials in a timely fashion, or so much paperwork and things just don't happen. And that's our 4 key executive director board: monitoring, clinical operational, business, and IT and financial. And these are some studies that my team there has already worked in terms of national coordination. So that's just to illustrate that the people that are working with us has experience not just as a site-based research type, but with national coordination. And several of these trials, all of you guys are very familiar. Some of those were even from here, from Duke. And we have, like, for example, this is a national registry of cardiac arrest that I have been working with some of you guys. Is one of our friends' PhD thesis. And we are just finishing enrollment. So we have also initiatives, studies that we are initiating nationally, because we also believe that this type of information are very important. In terms of the regulatory process in Brazil, and just briefly, and I have been discussing this with different people in different times. So the ethical committee, the National Ethical Committee, is called CONAP. And CONAP is only possible to receive a protocol after a local RRB has approved. So that's why when you go for a trial in Brazil, you need to have as your site number 1 a very efficient RRB, because that RRB is going to be responsible for being able to submit to CONAP, which is the national one. In our case, usually these take about 60 to 90 days just to have the local RRB. At this moment, in our university, in our IRB, we are being able to do this within 8 days. So we have recent experience where in the local RRB, we already are able to approve it in 8 days. In terms of CONAP, so they have the 60-day time frame between receiving the protocol and trying to send a response or an answer about approval or rejection or major comments or whatever. And then you have 30 days to answer, and then you start back and forth, back and forth. And mainly of the reason that Brazil is known to be really bad in the process is because people who are doing the submission do not know what they are doing. So they don't know even the mechanisms, the laws, how to apply. We have a very recent example. Ty is here, so he cannot let me lie. Where we have the TICOS trial, where the CRO was in charge of doing all the regulatory process submission, and the trial got rejected in the country. And so then I got this email from Dr. Caleb saying, Renato, what's going on? So I look back and I see, I saw everything that happened, and if I was the CONAP person, I would have rejected as well, because the way that the process was submitted was completely wrong. So then BCRI, talking a lot with, again, Dr. Caleb, Harrington, Ty, Jennifer, Ken, we took over. We were able to speed the process in Anvisa, and actually I think after 3 or 4 weeks the trial was approved for Anvisa, which is our FDA, and this week Ty will be hearing from CONAP. So hopefully we're going to be able to approve a trial that was dead in the country. So and if we get approval this week, this will be 4 months for the initial submission. Not initial, for the whole new submission, which makes all more challenging because we got already a rejection before. So that's the type of thing, and that is this CRI or even the company paying a lot of money to this CRO to do this job because they don't care. So that was a very nice example that recently happened here. And I think we can do a lot of things to speed this process. So the Anvisa that I was telling is our FDA equivalent. So every time we submit a protocol, we have to submit to Anvisa and to the CONAP. One is the National Legal Ethical Committee. One is the Health Authority. And Anvisa, we are working very close to them. And actually, 3 weeks ago, the president of Anvisa went to our university to meet with the board of directors of our institute because he was very proud that finally Brazil had a respectable ARO model, that they were really willing to work together to speed process. Because unfortunately also, we have previous model where clinical trials were done in the country just and purely for business and economic aspects. And Anvisa is against that. And several of the PLs and people who work with previous trials that know exactly what I'm talking about. So we are changing this. So regulatory process in Brazil, on average, 12 to 18 months. So basically when trial is done, Brazil is ready to go. So doesn't help. So now our initial thought is to actually decrease it for 6 months. And if you're succeeding in the TICOS trial, actually this will be happening in 4 months, actually. So let's hope that this happens. And I think this will be an important contribution for the country and for DCRI projects, because we can put an important country with a lot of patients up and running really quickly. In terms of monitoring, today we have 140 sites that work with us. These sites are all over the country, which has a nice representation. And they are mainly cardiologists, this one. But we have sites also in pediatrics, in diabetics, in other areas. So these 141 are the actually cardiology sites that work very close to us. And when you go to high quality sites, then we end up with 33. And if you notice, most of them located in São Paulo. And that's very important as well, because show that we have a long way to go in terms of training. And we have been discussing a lot with several people, Chris and Rhonda here, about how to provide courses and how to train sites and how to be better sites. So we are also preparing these courses and have this idea to really improve site quality. Because the proposal is end up with good clinical practice, knowing very well national and international regulatory process and clinical study protocol training, with the objective to achieve high quality data, subject safety, and of course, an efficient regulatory process submission. Our communications group, starting, we have some discussions also with Penny to maybe sending some of them here, spend some time with Penny's group to learn the dynamic. But so far they are working like in things like our business card, our brochure that I'm sure that several of you have already seen. And we have some people working in different ways of capturing data, entry data, doing data validation, and also doing transfer data. An example of that we are doing now on this is actually Danny Benjamin trial. It's a pediatric trial that we are doing the whole thing in Brazil for them. And we are including entering the data, cleaning up the data, and transferring the data to Danny. It's a PK/PD study that was very difficult to enroll in the US. So we are enrolling in our university. And the process was very fast as well. And believe me or not, but the most part of the time that took for us to sign all the contracts and everything was just waiting for Duke's signature, because all the rest was really faster.
We believe you.
In terms of our SOPs, I'm also working very close to several of you guys in developing our SOPs and in the key areas, and also adapting to the reality in Brazil. Our site-based research is combined internal medicine and cardiology. And I'm not going to go over, but just to illustrate several of the projects like Appraise, Aristotle, Atlas, Recover, Adopt, several studies. We have now the registry Garfield. So we have around 25 clinical studies ongoing in our site-based research. And what happened is that now several people and several groups, even when we are not the national coordination, doing the national coordination, they want us to be the first site, because we have a very efficient first site approval to be able to send to CONAP. So even in studies that we are not doing the national coordination, they want us to be the site number one so that we can use our RRB to approve and send to CONAP. In terms of clinical trials, in some aspects, not in all aspects, but these are the main trials that we are a little bit involved in national coordination. So the TICOS experience that I just mentioned, the pediatrics study with Danny Benjamin and Brian, the ischemia trial that we have been discussing a lot. So this trial will be very interesting because you'll be doing the whole package in the country, site monitoring, site management, regulatory submission, and I'm working also with the guys from the business development here at Duke, Susan Pfeiffer and others. The Appraise 2 is a trial that was not initially involved, but then the trial had some problems in the country, and now John Alexander and I are talking a lot with BMS Global, and probably in the next month or so, BCRI will take over part of the job that should have been done by the CRO, and they are not doing. The Cabana trial also, Dr. Lee and I have talked a lot about, and we are working with the operational people, Kathleen and others, and we are really close to get Brazil, BCRI involved doing the operational aspects of this important trial in the country. The Excel trial, I've been talking to Dr. Caleb and also to Adrian, so probably we'll be doing the national coordination and also parts of the operational, since the company has signed with the CRO, but the idea is that we take over with part of the operational aspects of the trial. And more recently, the STREAM trial, there is a trial that Paul Armstrong and Harvey White is running, very politically challenging the country. Very important question about thrombolytics pre-hosp. And because the trial is not taking over in the country, so now Paul and friends were very kind and asked us to take over the leadership of the trial in the country. So we are starting. In terms of CEC, I have been working very close to Ken and Patty and Arvila and others. So these are the trials that we are already working on: Aristotle, Tracer, Appraise. I have been monitoring very close our reviewers, and I think so far we are having a good quality review and also a good turnaround. Just for Tracer, I remember like last week we did like more than 300 cases per week, and there was a crunch, so I think it's very helpful. And Evolve, I have been talking to June and to Linda Sazik from July on, also going to involve, because it's a very hard trial in terms of reviewing tough cases, long cases, and after 6 months, everybody get sick of the trial in terms of reviewing the cases. And with that, I'm gonna almost end illustrating that really, like you guys have seen, so DCRI really being the main ARO in the world, controlling an example for the world, working very close to different people and different groups all over the world, but really nothing too much in a special relationship in an important part of the world called South America, which Brazil happened to be 50% of. So, and that's why the idea of creating something here, there'll be more than just other AROs, because personal relationships, professional relationships, and even maybe because of my person being here and being there, but with some advantage of being at least in the same time zone, things are easier, and there is a lot to be developed. It's a question of putting an infrastructure together that so far we have been trying to do, and with the help with everybody here at the DCRI. So that's the idea, to create the BCRI, and then it together could really make a different and unique partnership that so far I think is a unique model. In terms of acknowledgement, I thought a lot about that, and I started putting the names together, and I realized that I had more names in the acknowledgement than in my presentations. So then I decided just to maybe in the person of Dr. Harrington, the director of the place, of the DCRI, acknowledge really the DCRI family, because that's how I really feel it is. And I'm very honored and proud to be part of this family, and I really thank everybody that is helping me direct or indirectly in this initiative. Thank you very much.
Great. Thanks, Renato. That was a terrific overview. Maybe I could ask Dr. Colombo to come up as well to share any thoughts and answer questions or comments. I'll also say Renato's also been part of the stimulus package because he's bought a house in Durham, and so he truly is the double agent. You know, he really is, which is a key part, I think, of our formula here. That's been so successful and that I think has so much promise, is that Renato really is somebody who's got a foot in both institutions to be able to pull off what's really a remarkable task that of course no one's been able to do before. But questions for Renato, for Dr. Colombo?
Well, first, Renato, I want to congratulate you, and I hope the audience understands how extraordinary this is as to what you've put together. I mean, it's really, as Chris had said, this had been one of Dr. Califf's original visions, that there would be coordinating center collaborators around the globe. And I think Chris also said it's not exactly worked out. This is extraordinary, the amount of work that's gone into this, the organization that's gone into this, and your vision for it. I hope that people appreciate that. We're very proud of you, and we're very proud to collaborate with you. Can you help us think through, with regard to Chris's last comment, why have you been successful in this and other people haven't? You know, Caliph, Topol et al. Published the the Vigor Manifesto 15, 17 years ago that describes a lot of this, but nobody did it before you did. What are the key elements of success that you would help us pass along to other people to try to get to this point?
That's a tough question.
That's why I didn't ask Chris.
Thank you.
The way that I see, I mean, when you start doing things and work, we don't really think about the final results or what's going on. So it's actually nice when you put a presentation, because then we start realizing how much work and effort had been through this, and we feel good because you're just doing the right thing and for the right reason. I believe that the key element is really to be an honest person and work with passion what you like and be dedicated. Like, so I have several friends that sometimes say, oh, look, why don't you come back? We have several things going on here. But it's just like I love what I do. So I think that passion is a key element of that. And honesty, definitely, and hardworking. And then more important than that, or as important as this, I think is the whole mentorship thing that we have talked so many times about. I mean, I was so fortunate to deal with people like Karen Piper and Chris Granger and you and Ken and John Alexander and Christine Newby, and from the faculty perspective and also from a non-faculty perspective, having the support from every single person. I can come with a stupid question or with a more sophisticated question, and people would stop and teach me and try to help. And then I think from my end is really to make sure that that time is well enjoyed and that you can actually move things forward. But there are part of this that I cannot explain how it happened. It just like happens, you know. But I believe that having the right principles, being honest, and working hard is always what I believe that end up paying off. Not doing things like, oh, I want to do this because I want to be rich. Or I want to, if we want to be rich, we'll not be doctors. So if you believe that you can really do things for the right reasons to help people with no personal interest, I mean, of course everybody's ambitious, everybody want to have their own interests, but not driven by that. I think that's kind of how I would see this happen.
You know, I'll have to add that the passion is a big part of it, I think, and Renato's passion for this is really, and energy is really remarkable. That's a key element. Bob, I think you also, though, implied an important issue, which is the opportunity to take what Renato has done and see how we can leverage that for other groups around the world. And so we're trying to we've engaged Renato in seeing how we can have him as an example of success, share that with other people.
And just since you bring this, and I think that one piece is really like now understanding a little bit about more about the DCRI. I think that one of the key elements is having somebody who really can identify themselves at the DCRI, like I identify myself, feeling like part of the team, but in the same time being somebody that is part of another team in another country. Like, because if I was not in a university, if I didn't have the support of my bosses, Dr. Colombo, chairman of cardiology, chairman of internal medicine, maybe this will not happen. I would just say, oh, maybe let me stay at the US forever. So I think that really having somebody in the ground who knows the politics, and I have been talking to several people, if you don't know who you talk to, if you don't know who you go to, how the politics work, I mean, you just cannot make this happen because you get stuck, you know, in the politics, which is they're not small.
I wonder if we could ask Dr. Colombo to make a comment on behalf of the university leadership about what your perspective is on this and what you see some of the challenges being as this moves forward.
First of all, thank you all for the opportunity and for the good time I have had here in Duke, talking with all the faculty and staff from Duke and as well as the DCRI. I would like to add a comment in the history that Renato is talking about the success of the BCRI, I think the history is a mix of the individual, enterprise, and the environment. And I'm sure that the environment that we have in Brazil now for clinical research, for science and technology, is completely different from 10 or 20 years ago. We finally were able to convince politicians that science and technology is going to transform the country, and that science and technology is going to produce the money we need to solve social questions. Then we never had in the history of the country so many support for the university and for public university. This is one aspect. The second aspect is that in the last 10 years, we have now a rate of 10,000 PhD concluding their program each year. And I would tell you that in the last 20 years, in the first half of this period, most of them, they came to the United States or they were sent to Europe. And now we have people that are able to think about science with money from the government to do science and technology. Then the environment is completely different and is very supportive to people that, like Renato, is very serious and is going to be, we hope, is going to be very successful in our relationship with Duke. Why I came here? First, to see my friends, and beside that, we are trying to move from basic science to technology in health. And this is why we are trying to organize our Translational Science Institute. And I understand that this is the Mecca of the process, because you can run the clinical trial with money from the companies, the drug companies. You have people thinking science to give a good use for this money, and then you have good basic science to give insights for clinical trials that will be delineated in your home, Duke. And we intend that this is a nice model to be reproduced. And we have good people from basic science. We have some clinicians. And I think establishing something parallel, what you are doing here, and getting supports from friends and for people so successful like you, I think I can do the same with the environmental that I have now in my country. And we have some key problems. Maybe the first one is how to get people working together in the same direction. And I hope up to the end of the week I will learn with you how to do that.
Let us know.
Yeah, I want to, first of all, it was an outstanding presentation, Renato, and very enlightening. And as Bob said, I think it's really inspiring to see somebody who actually does what we mostly talk about. And I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit, because I'm curious, you know, a lot of these trials that you're doing and gearing up to do are basically commercially sponsored. They're looking to replace inexpensive therapies that might be widely applicable and affordable with very expensive therapies that are probably going to be much less affordable for the general population at a time when the global economy is still reeling, and you know the United States is trying to figure out what to do with the fact that we don't have any way of we've got great science and people want to emulate the science, but the science doesn't have any control. You know, it just wants to self-propagate, and one of the side effects of that is that we develop more and more expensive, fun, and perhaps effective toys, but who can afford all that stuff? What things would you look at here with your perspective and say, well, you know, that's not something that I really want to emulate. Some of these things we don't want to copy. We want to do something differently because the United States really hasn't completely figured out how to manage its own affairs.
Yeah. So then that's a tough question, and especially when you are already trying to do something really new, novel in the country. So what I try to do, I try to focus on the thing that I want to do similar to. So, and because there's so much work and there's so many things to be done, that I really haven't stopped to think about, okay, these things I really don't want to have there. But for example, I think that the part that I'm trying to take there is the healthy relationship that can exist between a partnership and an industry, for example. That I see that in my country is terrible, doesn't exist. Physicians sell themselves for companies for a trip to Europe. You know, even they are selling themselves for $1 million, they're selling themselves for $2,000. So I'm really focused on the good models that I see here, that in my country doesn't work at all. And we are talking about that, especially in the academia. How can you do that? So trying to bring these things over there, and with also the community. I think you brought an important point about the application of the results in our community. So the idea with the BCRI, and we're talking to people about that, doing national things as well, like registries, national studies that could provide some kind of insight in terms of how things will be applied there. But it's interesting also that not all of the trials, like the Prasugrel story, is being a problem in Brazil, because Prasugrel now is approved, and it's going to be approved next month in Brazil, and they don't have the patent there. So it's going to be generic there. So Brazil participated, people put patients on the trial, and everybody's going to be able to use. So these type of things are also happening there. I understand that it's a minority, it's not the majority of the cases, but in some cases, this really can help. But then, sometimes, things here are so different than the way that I could see, like the doctor-patient relationship, the suit around things, the reliability. They're so different than things that happen there. I cannot even establish a comparison because they don't exist there.
Great. All right. Well, I'd like to thank again the two of you for a terrific research conference.
Thank you.
We'll look forward to many updates in the future.